In his own words, these are in his own words that Americans are lazy and not good enough for basically high skilled engineering jobs. Point blank, period. It's safe to say that come January, we probably will see more layoffs. And if you feel like you want to enter your influencer era and you work in corporate America, then definitely take content creation seriously in 2025. I feel like tech companies are still going to lie and say, yeah, we support, D&I and all that stuff. But the reality is that most of these programs are losing their funding. And welcome to the Tech Unlock podcast, where we demystify emerging technologies and give you the keys to unlock your successful tech career. I'm your host, Grace Macjones. Let's unlock the future together. Hello, everyone. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Tech Unlock podcast. I wanted to make a episode based on what I think will be very dominant in 2025 when it comes to tech careers. And there's a trend also on social media about ins and out. So I decided to do one on tech because that's my life for right now. And so this episode is going to talk about 5 trends that are in and about 5 to 4 trends that are out. So the first thing really is not any news and it's really sad, but I just want to level your expectation. What's in for the long haul, I believe, is frequent layoffs. In 2024 alone, we saw around 500 tech companies lay off around 150K tech workers. And it is sad, very sad and disheartening that this has become a trend that we see. And it looks like a lot of investors love the layoff trend because tech stock prices have risen in the last year. And so this is something that isn't going to be new or is something that we can control. I know a lot of people on Blind or on Reddit are looking for ways to see, okay, what jobs or what roles would be considered safe. And honestly, at this point, there really is no telling which roles are safe. Yes, there are some that you can kind of like, okay, if you work in DNI low key, your job might be at risk. And we're going to talk about that later on. But it's safe to say that come January, we probably will see more layoffs. And this is nothing new. We saw layoffs start in 2022 when Meta laid off around 11,000 employees, and they've done so every year. They did last year in 2023, laid off 10,000 employees. Also, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, they've all done the same thing. So, first trend that's in 2025 in tech is layoffs. And what is out, like I mentioned, is diversity, equity, inclusion, DEI. On a micro level, a lot of programs that contribute to DNI or DNI practices within certain tech companies have been caught off in terms of funding. But on a macro level, on a bigger level, I don't see a lot of companies coming out to say, hey, we're not supporting DNI anymore. Of course, they're not going to say that, but they are restricting folks from going to certain conferences, partnerships that they would before be partners with in terms of like programs and conferences. I've spoken to some conference founders and nonprofits that you would usually get a ton of money and support from these tech companies, and they have reported that support has dwindled. And so a lot of them have been put to risk, and a lot of these organizations actually closed down in 2024. I believe Girls in Tech shut down, Women Who Code also shut down. And so we're going to see more of that in 2025, unfortunately. But I feel like tech companies are still going to lie and say, yeah, we support, D&I and all that stuff. But the reality is that most of these programs are losing their funding. And also due to the political climate, with a new president coming in January, a lot of people feel like, okay, a lot has changed since 2020. I can't believe that's almost 5 years ago, where the sentiment was different. But I feel like even though a lot of companies are cutting funds, there are people still willing to still invest in DEI, which I think is still important work. Moving ahead of what is in, and I knew this wouldn't last forever, but it was nice why it lasted. I mean, remember when we all thought that remote work was here to stay? Yeah, that was me. I thought remote work was here to stay. And it turns out, yeah, the tech CEOs are like, nah, that's not here to stay. A lot of tech companies are requiring their employees to come back to work at least 3 to 5 times a week. Amazon is one of those companies that are requiring their folks to come into the office at least 5 times a week. They're actually supposed to start in January 2025, but apparently they've pushed it back due to limited space within the office. And I'm like, duh, like, how do you go from having people work remotely to them all coming back at the same time? Obviously, there's going to be space limitation. And so, with that being said, we're going to see more companies demanding their workers to come into the office. I think the hybrid model isn't all too bad. But the 5 times a week is just insane, especially for people who are families or have a different lifestyle. They've accommodated different things within the last 5 years that is not just sustainable to continue commuting either long hours or trying to find now like maybe daycare or trying to find other alternatives to change your lifestyle. So I'm with you. If you're going back into the office, sending you all the good vibes, and I hope that you're able to make a smooth transition. But I think this is a trend that a lot of companies within tech are going to definitely enforce because we are in an employer's market, and so they basically can do whatever it is because they know that there's not a lot of job openings right now. So people do whatever it is to keep their jobs for the most part, which is sad that they're playing on that. But another trend that is out, what is out in 2024, seemingly, I don't want to jump into conclusion, but the product manager role looks like it's declining. There's been a lot of discourse on this on LinkedIn, also on Substack, about how due to AI and due to companies trying to cut costs, that they are not hiring a lot of product managers anymore. Almost some of the roles that are being reduced are not just SWE software engineer roles, but also product manager roles because they feel like they can have maybe one person working with engineers when it comes to a particular feature a product. And then also AI is helping automate a lot of things. And a lot of companies are like, oh yeah, we can have AI or one person using AI to streamline releases and communication. Then why do we need to have 6 or 7 p.m. on this team or whatever it is? And so a lot of decline. And there's actually a article that I read by Lenny's newsletter, who talks about a lot about product management. I'll put it in the show notes, but he talked about how a lot of PM roles are actually going offshore, and the PM roles that are in demand right now are senior level and above. So there's not a lot of entry level roles because a lot of senior people are taking those positions, meaning that they are minimizing a lot of those roles that would be, be used by people who are entry level or mid level. So if you're not a product manager now, I think it's harder more than ever. Yes, maybe you can get an internship, but translating that into a full time role will be more work. It's not impossible, but it will be more work. A trend that is in right now that I'm paying attention to is the rise of corporate influencers. If you've ever thought about being an influencer and you were in corporate America, and now is your time to shine. We've seen the rise in beauty influencers, fitness influencers, finance influencers, and now I think it's your turn. If you're in corporate America or even in tech, this is your time to shine. Tech companies are increasingly looking for employees who can be brand ambassadors on social media. This trend is part of the last shift towards humanizing tech companies and building trust with consumers and potential employees. And I've experienced this firsthand where companies will, engage with me and say like, "Hey, we have this conference. Would love for you to come attend it." And sometimes it's not paid, but they pay for everything else, like your flight, your accommodation, your food, and all that kind of stuff, all for you to talk about it on your social media. And so given that a lot of people are getting laid off and it's hard to get a job, if you're trying to get more coins in your bank, definitely start posting more on LinkedIn, maybe Substack, start a podcast so that tech companies can find you, and make sure that you have a distinct message, right? Because a lot of these companies are looking for people who are basically align with their brand and what they're trying to promote. And so if that's you and you feel like you want to enter your influencer era, and you work in corporate America, then definitely take content creation seriously in 2025. And then what's out in comparison to corporate influencing is corporate loyalty. A lot of people are sick and tired of all the changes happening within tech and just corporate America, and therefore they are not being loyal to their company as they did maybe 5 to 10 years ago, where someone would stay at a company for 10, 20, 30 years and really believe in what the company stands for now because of how employees I have seen how they've been treated and that their loyalty isn't rewarded and they're easily laid off. A lot of people are like, you know what? I don't need to, wear the brand of this company in terms of the way that they see themselves within the company or even feel like, oh, I'm going to be loyal to this company. Even with stocks, a lot of people I know who work at Amazon now are rethinking, okay, do I really want to stay in this company just because of the stocks or just because of the pay? And a lot of people are like, I don't think so. And I think this is on a higher conversation based on the shininess that FANG companies had. So that's Facebook, or now known as Meta, Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, Netflix. I feel like I'm the FANG thing. I forgot what the acronym is for, but a lot of these big companies where people used to fantasize about working and dream someday, like, oh, this is my dream job. Now I feel like they like I don't really care, to be honest. Like after seeing how easy it is to be let go and seeing how a lot of them are using AI and using hiring more offshore workers, people are like, you know what, I'm just gonna take the job as my job and not try to promote this company anyway outside my work. And I feel like that's something we're going to see continuing, where it's like company loyalty is something that has and will continue to fade away in the upcoming year. So back to what's in. Something that's interesting that really caught my eye is computer hardware engineering jobs. Surprised? With all the AI boom and the increasing demand for edge computing, hardware engineering is making a comeback. From designing specialized AI chips to creating more energy efficient data centers, hardware engineers are in high demand. So if you're interested in working in a field where you might have software engineering background but want something challenging, I would recommend looking into hardware engineering jobs. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, jobs for computer hardware engineers are projected to grow 5% from 2023 to 2033, faster than the average of all occupations. Companies like Nvidia, AMD, and Intel are in a hiring frenzy, with salaries for senior hardware engineers reaching up to $250,000 in major tech hubs. I'm not surprised at that number, but remember that's senior level. I think the mid salary or mid level salaries, it's about the same as a suite engineering salary of I believe 130, 150. And so it's just about doing something different. If you feel like you've done software for a long time and you feel like I want a new challenge, I definitely would recommend looking into hardware engineering. It could be something fun and exciting. But I know it's not for everyone, but that's just something to be aware of. Now, something that is out when it comes to trend is that entry level jobs, especially software entry level jobs, are on the decline. I'm not really too surprised about this with all the layoffs happening and the increase in AI agent, chatbots. A lot of things that folks would have done at the entry level are easily replaceable. And a lot of people are saying, okay, if I can't get a job as a entry level engineer, like what's the point? Like is there hope for me? And what I feel like there is not a lot of entry level jobs. I don't think they're all obsolete. I think it's about getting to the right company. I think a lot of big tech companies are not hiring entry level engineers because you just have so much resources and people to choose from. But if you try applying to other companies or maybe not big tech, maybe in the medical field, right? Like let's say if you want to be a software engineer, try working for a medical company or try working for a finance company. It doesn't have to be big tech. So I think if you look outside of big tech companies, there are some opportunities to work entry level software engineering jobs, but it might just take longer. And most of those jobs will probably be hybrid or in person. So don't try to say like, oh, I'm gonna get a remote job. While it's not impossible, I feel like it will take more time to find a remote position as an entry level software engineer. But on contrary, if you are interested in crypto and blockchain, I know that I've talked to a few people who, for them, most of the companies within blockchain and crypto, most of the jobs are mostly remote first. And so if remote first is literally a deal breaker for you, like you have to get a remote job, I would say look into crypto companies, look into Web3 companies, because they do offer most of those roles for entry level when it comes to software engineering roles and also product manager roles. All right, let's move on to the next trending topic. I believe that H-1B visas are going to increase in 2025. If you've been following the drama saga on X with Vivek, Elon Musk, and the whole MAGA super right wing chaos, I would say, or conversation, it's been interesting to see. So I'm going to try and summarize what's going on as simply as possible. So Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk obviously are part of a new government agency called Doge, which is completely made up. It wasn't created by Congress or any other governmental entity. But basically, there's a whole discourse saying that they believe that they want to see more foreign born individuals with who are highly skilled to come work in the US. Now, the far right are saying like, "Oh no, like why give them why give other people, basically immigrants, more of American jobs when they could just hire Americans?" And basically Vivek went on saying that in his own words, these are in his own words, that Americans are lazy and not good enough for basically high skilled engineering jobs. Point blank, period. Now, there's a lot I can say about this topic as an immigrant, as someone who works in engineering for the past 6 years. But what I want to say is that, first of all, with the H-1B visas, a lot of the people who are hired make less money, right? They make less money because they come in and there's a set salary range of what they can make because of this work visas. And so a lot of companies have exploited that, bringing foreign workers here. And it's different if you're an American, you have rights. You can say like, oh, I'm not getting paid XYZ and I'm not, getting what I deserve. Then you can unionize and do all these other things that someone who's an immigrant really can't do. And so this whole conversation has been interesting to watch and unfold, because people are like saying, okay, who will the next president side with? Will he side with his MAGA, um, community who basically voted him into power, or will he side with Vivek and Elon? And it looks like he's siding with Vivek and Elon because he feels like we need the best workers in America to create the best quality products and XYZ. And so that's why I feel like H-1B visas are going to be more in 2025. Yes, I feel like some parts of the process needs to be refined, but it's going to keep an interesting conversation within tech of like, okay, what does it mean to hire very skilled workers, and why is it that very skilled workers is defined as immigrants or people who are born in a different country? And I just feel like this is going to be a disaster in terms of what they're trying to do, because a lot of them are not in alignment. When I say a lot of them, I mean a lot of right wing tech bros. There's a lot of chatter, fighting back and forth. That's none of my business, because as a black person, as a black woman, I'm only 4% in terms of representation. But it'd be interesting to see how companies side with this conversation about what's going on, whether they're going to jump into the conversation or decide to stay out of like, no, it's not about me. I'm going to step aside. But like I said, this is my opinion only, not that of my employer or anyone else. But going through talking about layoffs, talking about corporate influencers, talking about an increase in H-1B visas and so on. And these are just from a career perspective, and, talking about return to office. I feel like there's so much more that's going to happen in 2025 that's going to be transformative. I want to hear from you. Let me know what you think will be one of the top trending topics in 2025 when it comes to tech jobs, tech careers. Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed listening to this episode, let me know. Definitely like and subscribe to the show. And I will catch you next week on a brand new episode of the podcast.